Greetings to one and all, it's your old buddy Jay here, coming at you with some more countermeasures goodness. This week I have another game changer for you, but a slightly different pace this time, as I want to take a little closer look at the PS5 showcase that was broadcast, I think, towards the end of last week. And yeah, there's some really interesting things in here, and I thought I might talk a little bit about this console launch, talk about the design of it, look at some of the games that are coming out, and discuss those sort of very briefly. And yeah, hopefully there's enough here to keep me going for about half an hour, I think. So yeah, it might be a bit of a long one, so we'll see how we get on. So this is the launch showcase for PS5. Up until now, everybody's just been waiting to see a little bit more of the gameplay and some more of the games that are coming out on it, and also the main thing being the reveal of how much it is and what the actual release day is going to be, because for quite a long time nobody's really known when these consoles were coming out, this one or the Xbox One. And yeah, what's quite interesting is they've left it later and later and later till the very last minute to tell people when they can buy them, how much they're going to be, and when they're actually going to be in their hands, you know. So I'm assuming that a big part of that is down to the this year's pandemic, and you know, people like Sony and Microsoft not really knowing the you know, the way they're going to get these consoles into people's hands. You know, there's a huge amount of uncertainty about that, especially when there's a huge part of this entire process which involves the physical construction of these consoles, and also the packaging and distribution of those. You know, these consoles now are super popular, and you know, gaming is the largest entertainment industry in the world of all time, you know, eclipsing movies and television by 100-fold. So you know, the demand for these products is through the roof these days. And you know, obviously people like Sony and Microsoft have to take into account that they don't want to make any promises they can't keep, because then that destroys their trust with their fan base, of which there are many fans. So yeah, so I guess that's the reason why it's taken a little while for them to actually come out and let people know how much they're going to be. Now, there is no coincidence that this showcase follows hot on the heels of the Xbox reveal from last week, because yeah, they basically came out with a digital console, which I think was around sort of $300. I think it's like 270 quid or something in the UK, and then there's like a $500 version, which I think is about 450 in the UK. I could be wrong about the Xbox numbers, but that feels about right. And then shortly afterwards, Sony came out with their release dates and their costs, to kind of, you know, basically try and undercut Xbox. Now, the high-end version of this console is going to be $449.99, and that includes the 4K Blu-ray player. And the cheaper version, which is the digital version, includes everything that the main box does, but it doesn't have the 4K Blu-ray player. So if you've already got a 4K Blu-ray player, and you don't really buy hard, you know, digital, you buy everything digitally and you don't really buy the disc media these days, then the digital one's the one for you, I think, you know. Now, Xbox have done something similar, where they've basically, you know, they've got a digital version and they've got a sort of high-end disc version, but the only downside to that is that their digital version doesn't hit the sort of 4K mark that their higher-end box does. So in that respect, I think Sony's kind of slightly one-upped them with their cheaper digital console, in that it does have all the same specs as the higher version. So, you know, if you were looking at them, you know, like for like, I think at the moment the digital version of the PS5 is looking particularly good. Now, I should quickly probably just talk about this trailer here before it finishes. This is the Final Fantasy 16. I've never really been a huge Final Fantasy fan, but you know, they did a re-release recently of Final Fantasy 7, where they did a whole remaster of it all, and that was quite good. The gameplay was quite good, so I'm probably going to try and give that Final Fantasy 16 one a shot. I hear they're really popular, and I've never really seen what the big fuss about them all is, to be honest. But I really think I need to invest some time into one to fully appreciate it, because there are a huge amount of fans for that franchise. So yeah, I'd quite like to know and get into it and sort of see what's been going on. I know my little brother used to play like Final Fantasy 4 and 5 like back when we were kids, and he was a massive fan, but I never really got into them. So moving on, this is the trailer for Spider-Man, but it is the Miles Morales character and not Peter Parker. Now, Peter Parker is obviously the original protagonist of the sort of Spider-Man franchise. He's the OG Spider-Man, if you like, and Miles Morales is like a development of that character, in as much as he also has spider powers. He exists in the same world as Spider-Man. He played a part in the PS4 version of Spider-Man, which was really good. I think it was created by Insomniac, I believe, and that game was really good. The whole sort of gameplay and the minute-to-minute gameplay and all the side missions were really fun. I did actually platinum that game, which I did, which was really good. Really got into it, and my little boy liked playing it as well, because you could just swing around a very realistic New York City. Now it looks like they've taken that realistic New York City and stepped it up a massive gear, looking at this trailer. Now, if this had come out a while ago, in the last generation or the previous generation, you'd have seen this trailer and you'd be like, right, there is no way that the graphic fidelity of this, what I'm seeing here is actual gameplay. But I am happy to say that this, all of these cutscenes now starting to look weaker than the actual gameplay. The gameplay, and the detail that goes into the character building and the plot lines, the stories. I mean, it's just really well written. Pretty amazing, really. Amazing Spider-Man. So there you go. I just feel like the gameplay here, the fluidity of flying through the streets, everything has a massive weight to it. You really do, apart from the Arkham series, which is sort of a benchmark for really good superhero games, Spider-Man is a cut above the rest, really. And the quests in these stories are incredibly good. And if they take a leaf out of the writing from the PS4 Spider-Man and apply that to this one, then I think we're in for a real treat. Now, this is a launch title with the PS5, some of the games we're looking at here might not be launch titles, but they'll be coming sort of within the first 12 to 18 months. And at the start of a consoles generation, you've already got people that have been working on this game for quite a long time. So usually what happens is the games that come out at the early beginnings of a console generation don't really push the console to its max. So what you're seeing here, while it is incredible, some of the games that are in development now that are coming out in the next 2 or 3 years, they're the ones that will really take advantage of the power of the PS5. And similarly for the Xbox, similarly for any kind of new graphics cards coming out for the PC, it takes a while for them to for the developers to really get a handle on what is possible within this sort of network that they're allowed to use these engines that they use to build the games. Now you look at this and you think, how can it get any better, because it looks bloody incredible, if you don't mind me saying so. And I just really looking forward to this one. The fluidity is obviously there from the first one. I mean, the first one didn't really have any problems in terms of gameplay and in terms of load times, etc. And I mean, I reckon it was a high 9, the last one, 9 out of 10. Whereas this one, I mean, the speed of these consoles now, especially the PS5, that is pushing forward the idea that they've really concentrated on the things that bother gamers the most, because they look great. The graphics are always going to look great. The gameplay is just second to none now with these games. The sort of high AAA, the real sort of high end ones. So then they have to just focus on the overall experience, that people are just used to putting up with some of these things that have bothered them, like maybe the sound's not quite right, or there's some some of the frames drop off during cutscenes, and if there's too much stuff going on screen, it sometimes just slows down the speed of what you're doing. I think that the fact that PS5 have really been, PlayStation have really been banging on about how they're optimizing all this stuff through the hill. I'm really, really looking forward to, that sort of the difference between the 10th of a second reaction time and, all of those things that they really are pushing forward on to really bring this next generation to life. Now, I had a PS4 when it originally launched and absolutely loved it. I did immediately just go out and get a PS4 Pro as soon as it became available, because while it wasn't necessarily a huge graphical leap, it did speed things up a little bit, and I do feel that some of the games and some of the sort of interactive VR stuff that I've been experiencing on the Pro is just really it really did make a difference. So, and that was just like a sort of upgrade for your iPhone, if you like. It wasn't even like a new console, it was just a sort of slight upgrade to the existing one, whereas this one is taking it to new heights. Now, PC gamers, they never really are that fussed about all of this stuff, because for them, the graphics and the playability and the frame rates and everything are so high anyway that they sort of look at console gamers and think, why are you getting so sort of worked up about this? If you really want to invest your time and effort, just buy a decent PC and then every now and again upgrade the graphics card, blah blah blah. But console gamers are a different breed, I think. They live on the couch and not at the desk. It's all a little bit more kind of turn it on, download the latest update, which sometimes can be sizable, but again, that's something that Sony's looking at in terms of the download rate and the speed of getting these games up and running for you immediately. I just feel that PC gamers have benefited from that for a long time, and now hopefully that's going to move PS5 owners into a new world there. I'm really looking forward to that part of it, because we've put up with slow loading times on decent games for a long time, so I'm looking forward to a change there. Now, just when you thought it was all over and J.K. Rowling was scurrying back into a little hole, having been a little bit controversial over the sort of past months, along comes the Harry Potter game. Now, Harry Potter isn't the franchise of this game. The franchise is actually Hogwarts, and I believe that this isn't even linked to any of the original Harry Potter films, which I'm really relieved about, because as much as I did enjoy the Harry Potter films and rewatching them with the kids, they absolutely loved them, and the whole sort of wizard world, and the fact that they're young and they're at school, they had a sort of connection there that all kids all young kids love all this stuff. I must admit that while I did enjoy the films, I've never really been a massive Harry Potter fan. Even when the first one came out, I kind of felt when I was a kid I'd read a lot of these similar stories about kids who were wizards, so it wasn't really like a new idea to me. But what I liked about the films is that it takes that concept and just pushes it a bit further, and introduce all these really interesting characters and interesting names for spells and all that stuff. So there's a real kind of cult feeling to it, which kids absolutely adore, and the books are well written. Despite being slightly having a slightly controversial author, I do feel that they are, and she is involved with every aspect of the franchises that, this franchise that she owns. So there's no doubt that she's been involved with this. So, like I said, as I believe there's no main characters from the films in this one, or any of the books, or maybe some characters that have, been around for a couple of hundred years. But I believe this is set in around the 18th century. So Hogwarts, the idea being that Hogwarts has been there for a long time, and there's been a lot of wizards that have come and gone during that time, and a lot of adventures to be had. So I must admit, I'm actually quite excited about this game. I think it looks really amazing, and I don't mind a sort of wizard RPG. I might try and ignore the fact that it's got all the kind of Harry Potter tie-ins. If there's too much of that kind of, we picked up a book and it said there's a guy with glasses is going to stop the baddie in the future. I mean, you can avoid all that and just concentrate on a sort of singular story that really brings you into that world. I could go for that. So this trailer we're looking at now is everybody's child-friendly favourite, Call of Duty. Now this is the new Black Ops, which is coming out. I believe it comes out on the 12th or 13th of November. And this game is, I mean, do they look any different anymore? I mean, graphically, yes, but, I'm looking at this Black Ops game and I'm thinking, hang on a minute, I was playing Black Ops 10 years ago and I felt like it looked the same. I'm sure if I go back and look at that game, there's polygons and map, and cuts and cutting through the scenery and bad mapping all over the place. But in my mind, this is what it looked like. So, as each year progresses, it gets closer to what's in my mind, I guess, and that's just what Call of Duty fans want. They want a really good single player campaign, which is what I go to it for. There's a huge multiplayer side to this game, which is just absolutely bananas how massive that is. And I must admit that of all of the multiplayer games that exist, I was never really that fussed about it, but about 3 or 4 Call of Duty games ago, which I can't even remember what that was, probably the Modern Warfare remake or possibly a little bit before then, I started getting into the multiplayer. Actually, it was well before then. I tell a lie, it was like Call of Duty 3, Black Ops 3 or something like that, and I did really enjoy the multiplayer, and subsequently every time I've played through the kind of 8 to 10 hour campaign, shortly afterward that unlocks a whole load of stuff, and then shortly afterwards you get to play the multiplayer, which is amazing now. It's beyond amazing. So there's a little bit of bullet time that they stole from I think the Sniper Elite originally came up with that. There's also, looks like there's some more combat mechanics going on where you can grab people and so he used him as a shield, put a hand grenade in his pocket and then shot him, so I think he's probably dead. So like I said, there you go, knife in the head and a shot to the head just in case the knife didn't polish him off. Again, these games, the gameplay is always amazing. The gunplay is always amazing. The scripted parts, I always find, they're fine. They're non-fail states, really. Unless you're playing on the really hard difficulties, which, I like to crank it up on these, because the easy difficulties, some of these parts you don't even need to shoot. You just sort of sit and watch everything happen around you. And I think there's a whole sort of need to make these games more cinematic. They're always saying, feel like you're playing a movie, like an 8-hour movie, and really feel like you're part of it. But I don't want to watch an 8-hour movie. Do you know what I mean? And like, they're always trying to make these things more cinematic, and I think, why? It's just like it's a video game. There are these moment to moments that feel, this all feels a little bit Fast and the Furious. Trying to get onto the moving plane, etc. And these, they're fine. These scenarios are good, but I actually just like the more methodical, moving through sort of tight and close spaces and having sort of close quarter combat fighting is always far more interesting. And the mechanics that are built around those moments in the games are really creative, and I do like that. I think these scripted moments just don't. You feel like you're losing control a little bit, whereas I'd like to feel like you're really you're really in control when you're playing. Your character never sort of leaves your sight, if you like. It all looks fine. I mean, it looks like Call of Duty but better. You can't. You can't diss the amount of work that has to go into those, and someone somewhere, it's their job to colour every blade of grass. Hats off to those guys who really put the time in to get those done, because there's a huge team that works from all the conceptual illustrations, the storyboarding, right through to the rendering of these things, and then being involved with the gameplay testing and all that kind of stuff. I mean, it's a huge undertaking, but it costs a lot of money, but it makes a lot of money. So that's absolutely the reason to push forward with it. So this game, I believe this is the new Resident Evil 8. So after Resident Evil 7, which came out a couple of Januaries ago, it also sort of was one of the first AAA games to come out on the PSVR, and it was also one of the first, as far as I know, one of the first Resident Evil games to come out in first person, because they've always traditionally been third person, and the remakes that have recently come out, so Resident Evil 2 and Resident Evil 3 have recently been remade. Those are both amazing. They were both third person. So these guys have a couple of things going on at the moment where they have the best of both worlds. They have one really strong franchise, and you could argue that it's been weakened by the films, and maybe some of the spin-off games haven't been as good, but the core games have always been, even like 5 and 6 that are a little bit pants. They're still good playable action games, and I think that these they're going back to more of the horror roots rather than the action that everybody loves. And a few years ago, people were saying about how the horror side of computer games, is kind of sort of heading on its way out. I say the opposite. I think that never before have you needed more of these sort of scary games, because there are so many sort of action-based shooters out there that you really need something that's a little bit more engaging and it keeps you on the edge of your seat. I mean, I like a good horror film. Playing Resident Evil, like the remakes of sort of 2 and 3, not that scary, but Resident Evil 7 scared the pants off me. Now, originally when I got it, I thought, oh great, I'll play the whole thing in VR, because it's the first proper kind of 8 to 10 hour experience where you can go through the whole thing in virtual reality. So you put this helmet on, you're in the mansion, you're wandering around, there's jump scares all over the place, you can reach and pick up tapes and listen to tapes and turn on TVs and whatever. And I did that for about 3 hours, and I must admit, like, I am a grown man, I should probably be a little bit stronger of heart, but it absolutely terrified me. Now when it was on screen and I was just sat back on the sofa playing it, it was fine, but as soon as I put the VR helmet on, it just terrified me, so I had to switch out of it, unfortunately. Maybe I'm just getting old, but there is a huge market for that. So this game is, I believe it's called Deathloop. If that just popped up, I missed it briefly because I looked away, but I think you replay the same 24 hours over and over, and there's a sequence of events that you have to sort of follow through in order to complete your objective. I also think there's a if I'm right, there's a multiplayer side to this, which you're trying to achieve one objective, and I believe that one person is trying to stop you. So while you're trying to work out the patterns of what you're doing, I think there's another person who's also hunting you while you're hunting someone else. I think that's the premise of this game. Personally, I don't really like the art style of it. I think that the surrounding environments, everything, that all looks a little bit Call of Duty. And then you've got these kind of slightly weird looking sort of plastic men and women running around in it. I just don't really feel that the style seems to fit it very well. Although I like these bits, I like the little animated parts, like the simple kind of 3-tone, 4-tone illustrations. Give me a whole game that looks like that. That's what I want. Something that's a little bit more fun and cartoony. I'd be well up for that, and that sort of illustrative style. But as soon as you cut to the these guys, they look like sort of PS2 characters, and I know it's a style, and when you look at the character models, you'll be able to see the detail and the reflections on their jackets and all that kind of stuff. But when you're moving at high speed, taking these guys out, as you can see from this trailer, it just doesn't. They look crap. But I do like all this illustration style, like I said, and I think that if they'd have done something with that, I probably would have been a little bit more impressed with this one. Feels just a bit generic, and there's a lot of first-person shooters out there, and I feel that just they could have done something a little bit more creative with the concept of this. I'm still going to try and play it, because more than often with these sorts of games, I am proved wrong, and some there are elements that people are sort of trying to introduce that maybe haven't been introduced before. But from the off, I'm not getting very good vibes about this. I mean, the PlayStation 5 has, I think it's 8 Zen 2 cores, I believe, that are all like 3.5 gigahertz, so the power's pretty up there. You've got these super fast loading times, so there's no excuse for the graphics to be as sort of slightly dodgy as this looks. But it could just be that it's the alpha build or the beta, and when the final thing comes out, it might just look a little bit better. But I just feel it's not really doing it for me. You've got all this hardware at your fingertips. You've got the big thing is ray tracing, isn't it, at the moment, which is the fact that they can there was a video out not long ago about PlayStation's ray tracing, and ray tracing in general, because it's across the board for these consoles, and the Xbox included, the possibilities of what they can do are really incredible, with lighting and textures, and all of this just looks a little bit like they haven't really tried. It doesn't really look that great. Now, with all these games, maybe the sound is a huge part of it. You know, it's something that I tend to leave out a lot of my trailers at the moment, because sometimes I get copyright strikes for the music, not necessarily what we're looking at, but the music tends to be the thing that catches a copyright strike, so I tend to leave that out of it. You know, so that was Devil May Cry, so that's a game that came out on PS4, but they've sort of remade it and remastered it for the PS5. It doesn't actually look that different. I'm sure that the you know, like I was saying, things like the ray tracing and the particle effects in the air, you know, the design of those things will have been sort of, you know, they'll be able to push them a little bit further, but the fundamental gameplay of that looks pretty much the same as Devil May Cry 5. So yeah, I mean, what I am really interested in for the new PS5 hardware is you know, another element which, you know, is arguably a design element, which is the 3D positional audio. Now this console is coming out with a whole, they're really pushing this 3D audio, and what 3D audio is, as far as I understand it, is that your PS5 will be able to work out, you know, it actually maps an individual's hearing. So I guess if, you know, you sort of, having not been through the process, but from what I've seen, you know, you put your headphones on and you know, you select that you're using headphones, and then it does like a series of tests, and I believe that there's even some software that owns some hardware combination that actually scans the interior of your eardrum to work out the size and you know, the position of where the sound should be per individual, which sounds completely insane, but I love it when new consoles come out and they push the tech, and yeah, I'm all for this. Now the 3D audio is obviously, in terms of watching movies, etc., is, you know, obviously beneficial to the individual, because not all sound applies to everybody. You know, some people have better hearing than others, and you know, they hear things in a different way slightly, so, you know, having that option is really great. And I think in terms of gameplay, I feel that, you know, they're banging on about how, I mean, you know, if you're playing any sort of online multiplayer like Call of Duty Warzone, or if you're playing, you know, like Borderlands 3, you can hear other players coming up next to you. So like at the moment, even with the headset, you know that it's left or right of you, you know if it's slightly behind you. But with the 3D ear mapping, you will really be able to identify a noise coming from, you know, from your back shoulder, or from directly behind you, or from in front of you if you haven't seen it, you know. Which I just think is really interesting, and, you know, it does open up a whole other set of options for you know, creativity and design, in terms of you know, maybe there'll be games that come out that have absolutely no visuals. You know, I could see a future where maybe there's a game, you know, it's a bit gimmicky, and maybe, you know, it's not a big thing, but maybe there are gaming sections where everything's completely black and you're just following the sound, which I think is really interesting. I think there's something really quite sort of creative, and you know, sort of the development of that is very refreshing. So I'm really looking forward to seeing how that moves things forward. Now, you know, I'm sure that the quality of you know, PC's probably been doing it for years, I'm not entirely sure, and the Xbox probably has an element of that too, because the quality of sound is something that everybody takes into account when they're doing this sort of next generational thing. But Sony in particular have been pushing that as one of their big assets, so I am really keen to see, you know, like in this part, this sort of this Demon Souls remake, this reimagining, you know, being able to hear there's a monster just around the corner on the left, or maybe there's one just back behind you. You know, you might not think that's a huge thing, but when you're immersed within these worlds and you're really paying attention to the slightest noise, it can be the difference between succeeding and failing, you know. So I'm really looking forward to how that changes gameplay, and you know, if they just do what they did with the touch button on the PS4, which is the first few games came out and they're like, hey look, we can do this gimmicky thing where we include it in all games, then people are just like, that's really annoying, and then they just forget to do it. So, you know, every 4 or 5 games something comes out that maybe uses that big touch button as the map, you know, or if like Ghost of Tsushima comes out, they use it so you can swipe it for the wind, or for like putting your sword away. So some games take advantage of that. Excuse me, that's not the mic. Some games take advantage of that and some don't. So I'm interested to see whether that, firstly, how creative they can get with that, and secondly, whether it actually has legs and does make a difference. So yeah, I am looking forward to that. It's, you know, the cutting edge head related transfer function and the Tempest 3D audio tech all sounds very impressive. I'm just hoping it does pull through. Now, what we're looking at here is gameplay for Demon Souls. Now, I can never get on with Dark Souls games. Originally, I bought this. I think I got an import of this years and years ago because I'd heard so much about it, but it wasn't available in the UK. And yeah, I played it for about 10 minutes and I was like, nah, it's just way too hard. And then I went back to it and I kept going back to it and back to it, replaying the first hour again and again and again, never got any further. Then the Dark Souls games came out and I thought, oh, well, this looks a little bit more like it might be, you know, a little bit more easier on the eye and on my skill set, and yeah, those are hard too, and I got so far in those and quit, and you know, and then I got Dark Souls 2 and tried that and it was the same. Then I got Dark Souls 3. I mean, they look amazing, but I never really could sort of push on. Then Bloodborne came out and I absolutely loved that. It was a slightly different style of gameplay and that was more arcadey, and you know, that was a really good one. And then I got totally sucked into Sekiro, which I played over Christmas last year, and I kept going back to that and only recently finished that actually. I did really enjoy that. So yeah, I'm hoping that the remake of the Demon Souls is as hard as it was originally, because I feel, having played through Sekiro, that's got me into a good place with the FromSoft games, and I'm hoping that that it introduces me to getting back into those. I would really like to do that. So yeah, so that's that. Now, so we've just gone through you know, all the sort of the main sort of, I guess, in majority of them are launch games. Now there's a little sort of trailer of you know, there's a bit of Fortnite here, and I'm sure there'll be some other bits and pieces coming up with all the other stuff. So, you know, you can't have a PS5 without having Fortnite on it. I mean, it's just standard now. You know, so, and I think, you know, these games, they're going to take advantage of the SSDs, so the solid state drives that come with them all. Up until now, PS5, you know, PS4s, you know, the majority of the PlayStations up until now have all had moving drives, and now they've got the solid state ones, so that helps with loading times. So this part of the presentation was discussing the benefits of PS Plus. So if you're a PS Plus user, which, you know, if you want to get online with PlayStation, you have to be. I believe it's about £45 or £50 a year. During that time, each month you get a couple of games for free for your subscription, basically. Now, they're never ever AAA games that have just come out. They're always games that, if you're like me, you're well into your game. So I consider myself to be relatively hardcore, although maybe not the hardest of the hardcore, but certainly into it in a big way. Yeah, it tends to be that, you know, they'll say, oh, these two games are out, and it's like, great, I bought those 2 years ago and finished them, and now I'm just not really that interested. So this is a collection of games that will be available. It's kind of like a sort of the best of PS4, which they're making available for PS5 if you've got a PS Plus account immediately on day one. So they're saying, hey, look at all of these great titles that have come out, and they are great titles. They're all brilliant games, and they will take advantage of all the load times, and they will take advantage of, you know, whether there's huge graphical changes. It doesn't look like they've all been sort of rezzed up or anything, but they certainly will play better on a better system. You know, and Last of Us, again, I mean, that you know, I'm always a huge advocate for that game. It's one of my favourites. So yeah, I do think that if you're coming into this console generation having not, oh, there's Resident Evil 7. Yeah, imagine doing that with your VR headset on. So yeah, I think if you're coming into this fresh, you have this amazing set of games, you know, for like sort of 40 or 50 quid a year. Straight off the bat, you're getting all these really good games like Fallout 4 and all that. But what I will say about that is that Xbox have absolutely owned that side of the, you know, the sort of backwards compatibility. Not only are they making all the games that you have currently within your library backwards compatible with the Xbox Series X and the Xbox Series S, but they're also introducing you to Game Pass, which has been around for quite a while and has been progressively getting better and better. And it started off with a few games, and it's grown into this huge, great big library. So for a monthly subscription of that, I'm not sure what it is, you know, like 10 for the standard, or like 20 for the sort of the higher tier per month. You know, during that time, you get access to all the games. So maybe a game comes out today that's suddenly on Game Pass, because that's the deal that Microsoft have got with the part, you know, with that particular developer. Now, the developer themselves, if they're owned by Microsoft, then there's they don't stand to lose anything. People are just going to invest, and they're pushing people towards the subscription service over, like Netflix and Amazon and all of those that do really, really well with films. Gaming is going that way. I mean, I haven't bought any disc-based media for a couple of years now. Everything is digital. So my pre-order of the PS5 is digital. I didn't need the version that had the 4K Blu-ray player because I have a couple of other 4K Blu-ray players kicking around the place that do the job perfectly. So I don't need that to be part of the part of the system. So here you can see 450 quid for the top end, and then the digital, which is also top end minus the disc drive, was 4499. So yeah, so I do think that this was a really successful showcase for PS5, showing off a lot of the games. And this little teaser at the end was for the next God of War, which they didn't really show any gameplay or anything, but it's just a little kind of thing to say this is something that's going to happen in the future. So as far as I'm aware, as of today, but things are changing daily. The PS5 you can pre-order it, and it will be released in the US on the 12th of November, and in the UK / rest of the world on the 19th. So, the delay and people saying, when are we going to know? When are we going to know? In a way, I don't mind it, because suddenly, you've got your pre-order in, and in a couple of months, you're going to have a whole new console with all this new tech coming in. So I can't wait to see what the what the designers have come up with in terms of making new games and making this system a real, moving things real, really moving them all forward. Now. The other thing is as well is that if you have a whole load of PS4 accessories, apparently they will be compatible with your PS5, which is always good to know, that I'm not just slinging everything in the dustbin and starting again. So because I do like the old DualShock for the PS4, and while the new one looks awesome, I think I don't want to go out and spend another 60 or 70 quid on another controller for my boy to play on it every couple of months and not really play a bit of FIFA or whatever. So I'm glad to see that those accessories are going to carry over. As with the PSVR headset, it's all fully compatible with PS5, and I think there's going to be a PSVR 2 coming out, not shortly, but in the future. That's something that Sony are actually keeping going with, which I'm really pleased about, because a lot of those games are very, very good, and it's well worth looking into VR if you get the opportunity. And I've really enjoyed my time with that, and I'm glad that the accessories carry over. As far as the design goes of the actual console, I do actually really like it. I think that it's getting a lot of people are either for it or against it. It's very polarizing. I don't mind that. I'd rather have that than have someone say, oh, it's a little bit kind of middle of the road or whatever. So yeah, I do really like it. I mean, does it look like my router from 2002? Yes. But do I mind that? No. I think that the last sort of like 4 or 5 years, I've had this little black box sitting under my TV. It's just so dull. It's got like a little dim light on it, and it's kind of all, you could say it's all very classic and timeless, etc. But it's boring. I like the design of the PS5. I like the design of of the digital and the disc-based version, because I feel like if you're going to come up with a sort of a futuristic looking computer console, a gaming console, then why wouldn't you do something like that? If you were going through Mass Effect and you were suddenly in an area where you're like looking at the gaming section or the sort of the entertainment section, there would be something that looks like the PS5 sat there, that and I quite like that. It's not just a little black brick. Now Xbox, sorry to say, they have gone with a black brick. It doesn't, it's more of a breeze block, but we'll see how it goes. I mean, when the Xbox One came out, I had a launch day one of those as well, and it looked like my nan's old video. I mean, it was absolutely massive. And then subsequently, as time's gone on, they've got smaller and more powerful, and now I feel like the Xbox One X, it does look a bit of a beast. But then the Xbox One S series, whatever, that one, the digital one, that one looks, is sort of bragging about how it's the smallest one of all time and all this kind of stuff, and it looks like a kind of radio from like 2002 or whatever as well. So I mean, I don't know, there's a bit of a sort of throwback back to that sort of design. I don't mind it so much for that one, but the Xbox X, you know, I think that one probably could have tried a little bit harder. So yeah, I mean, if you really wanted to splash out, you can get a PS5 gold version. There is a gold-plated version you can purchase, which is 10 grand, so that's always nice. So yeah, if you wanted to do that, I recommend that you get your cash together, and yeah, I mean, maybe you're an Arabian prince and you want to invest in that, then why not? But yeah, I think that was it. I managed to talk for over half an hour, so I'm going for the record. Oh, nearly 40 minutes. So if you're still hanging in there, then thanks for listening through this. And yeah, I am looking forward to messing around with the new teraflops and seeing what the designers have come up with for new stories, and all the creatives that are behind that, and yeah, all the faster loading times. The thing for me will be the 3D positional audio. That's something that I'm really looking forward to playing with, which obviously I mentioned before. But yeah, that's about it. So you can go out and pre-order this now. There are plenty of them. The Xbox pre-orders went up today, so today is the 22nd of November, and I believe that comes out on the today is the 22nd of September. Sorry, actually it still feels like March, but yeah, it's the 22nd of September, and I believe that the Xbox actually comes out on the 12th. And that's right. I don't know, I've probably got all those dates mixed up. It's all coming out in November, so that's all you really need to know about it. And I know that the Xbox has been selling out an absolute gangbusters today, so you'll be lucky to get yourself a pre-order. I'd actually suggest doing the opposite of what I would normally do in terms of pre-orders, which is might be best going into like a game or like Argos or somewhere like that, and actually going in store and doing it, because I believe most people are they're thinking there's going to be massive queues standing outside these places waiting to get them. Actually, I went on the high street today, and a lot of the places where you can pre-order them are pretty empty. So I think most people are doing it all online. So I suggest get down the store, because they've got a whole load of them around the back. So you might get lucky. Yeah, I think that it's definitely worth looking at all of these new generation new systems, and I'm really looking forward to seeing how they push it all forward, and the kind of how the competition ramps up between the two. Now, the breaking news that happened yesterday, just to talk about this before I finish, is like I was saying, Xbox Game Pass just blows the PS Plus game sort of library out of the water by far. I've played all of those games. I'm not that fussed about playing them all again, and they look slightly better. I want new experiences, which is something that the Xbox is doing with their Game Pass. They're saying, here's all the old stuff, it looks better, runs better, and here's a whole load of new stuff that's just come out, and it's all part of your Game Pass. And on top of that, you can go into a sort of payment system whereby you don't even have to front up the 450, 500 quid at the start for your console. You can pay monthly for that. I think it's like £25 a month. You get Game Pass thrown in with that. So essentially on day one, you can go down to game, you can give them 25 quid, 30 quid, and you'll walk away with a brand new Xbox with hundreds and hundreds of games. I mean, it's unbeatable. Now, the argument against that is that, well, Sony's first party games are so much better. You've got like FromSoft and Naughty Dog and all these guys that don't release, that primarily release on PlayStation. And up until now, literally the last 24 hours, those first person, those first party games have always been so exclusive and so good that you don't really, there's never even been a question about which way I would go. I've been a PS5, PlayStation fan and an Xbox fan for a long time, but I've always favoured PlayStation, because that's where the majority of the first party games come out that I like. Now, over the last 24 hours, Microsoft have just bought Bethesda. So what that means is, their kind of first party game side was always sort of letting them down slightly. They had like sort of Gears of War as their sort of main AAA thing. They have Halo, which are popular with the people that like those franchises, but they don't do enough to drive the kind of the first party gaming side of Xbox. And Xbox have just completely countered that by purchasing Bethesda, and I believe they paid $7 billion. So they now own the rights to Doom and Fallout, and countless other really popular RPGs that that have always traditionally come out on all platforms. Now I see a future, and Xbox are always banging on about how they don't like the pre-order culture, so if you all the time delays for so a game will come out on PlayStation, it will say out on PlayStation first for the first 12 months, and then it will come out on Xbox. We've been seeing less and less of that happening, but Xbox haven't had anywhere to go. So games will come out on the PlayStation and they just won't even entertain the fact that they'll be on Xbox, or if they do go on Xbox, it happens so late in the console generation that people have sort of already managed to play it or have lost interest by the time that happens. With them purchasing Bethesda, that now means that they have the leverage to say, well, you know what, Fallout isn't going to be on PlayStation anymore. Doom isn't going to be on PlayStation. They could do that. I don't see them doing that because they actually play quite nicely, and they're looking for to move everything forward as this giant ecosystem where it all works together. Sony have always been really mean and have never really approached Xbox in that way in terms of playing nice. And now Microsoft have gone ahead and purchased one of the largest gaming studios in the world that produce all of these games that like Dishonored and Prey and all of those games that they now are in the pocket of Microsoft, and that tips the scales massively. There is no Xbox war, but there is ownership of the the sales space, and Sony's been absolutely killing it for years and years, and Xbox have been on the back foot all this time. They've been biding their time, and now they've come out with this, and I do actually think that it makes them absolutely formidable in terms of giving people access to the games that they love. And buying Bethesda is just an absolute stroke of genius, and they'll sink all the money. Don't worry about Microsoft, they have all the money, so they're going to sink it into those games, and they will own it again. I truly believe that there'll come a time where PlayStation will have no choice but to start having some of their first party games as cross-platform. So it's interesting. It's all really good news for gamers like us. And it's all really good news for the creatives of the world, because it means the money going into this industry is just, it's just turning out more and more, the quality's getting better and better. And I do think that it will really raise the game on all levels. And if there is a console war, whatever that is, if there is competition, if it doesn't go the way of like we're all one family and it's us and them, then so be it. That also raises the game. It raises the bar up and really pushes people to do new, innovative, creative things, which is the whole point of this whole thing. New experiences. And I can't wait to be part of it. So I guess that is everything. Like, subscribe, all that stuff, blah blah blah, and all that's left to say is be good, stay safe, and be kind to one another. Cheers.